And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tocsin Bang Tales from the Bunker, episode 2. Tonight I'm going to be speaking to Gavin Saxby from 28 Group Observed in Dundee. We will invite him into the stream, so I will pop in and get the split screen up, and I will bring him in, and I will also unmute his microphone. Gavin, good evening.
Hi Al, how are you doing?
I'm very, very well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Glad to be indoors given how rainy it is outside here tonight.
Yes, the weather here is absolutely appalling. It started raining at about 9 o'clock this morning and it hasn't stopped. So, yeah, for a change. Northern Ireland. Great, thanks very much for coming on. I think I first met you in about 2009. You were one of the sort of the first big bunkers I ever got into, and I see you're sitting there in the sort of the sector control room in Dundee, with one of the map boards behind you, the perspex displays. I think we'll jump straight into it. Would you like to basically talk about the history of 28 Group and obviously the control room itself?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, as far as we know, the bunker was first built as the sort of group control bunker for the sort of Dundee kind of area in 1962. That picture sort of shows the original kind of surface layout, making it look very similar to a lot of the other group HQs up and down the UK.
Pagoda style, I think, was what they called them, wasn't it?
The what? Sorry,
pagoda. I think pagoda style was what they were. So what they were called, the design.
Yeah, I think some people call them the Aztec temple because of that kind of the mound.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But this is quite a rare sort of picture from our archive. It's the only sort of one that we've got that shows the bunker in its original surface layout. Every other picture we've got shows it kind of much later. I think they're all kind of into the 90s.
Yes, this photograph would be late 90s, I take it. Would it be, or early 90s, or?
No, that was in September 91. That was the day after stand down.
Right. Okay. And obviously, what we're looking at is the headquarters of what was 28 Group, which was Dundee Royal Observer Corps, and the bunker was quite unique in that later on in its life, another bunker was sort of bolted onto the side of the existing bunker, and then it became the Caledonian sector headquarters. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. So if you sort of look where you can see that red car kind of down in the bottom right,
yeah,
that's kind of where the other picture that you showed, must have been taken sort of back in the 60s.
Yes.
When there was a road running through it.
In fact, I'll go back to that very, very quickly so people can see.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the bunker sort of extended in the late 70s when the old Caledonian sector bunker up at School Hill in Aberdeenshire was just deemed to be kind of too old, too damp, and too small, and so they decided to extend the bunker here. The kind of extra bunker that you talked about is on the right hand side of that photograph, kind of under the lawn.
Basically where that manhole cover is there? Correct,
yes.
Okay, so in terms of that then, the bunker went from just controlling the bunkers, the ROC posts that were in 28 Group. It then, how much of Scotland then was it controlling?
Well, it sort of covered all the other Scottish group headquarters. So it would kind of aggregate the information from Dundee, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Ayr, and Inverness.
Okay.
And kind of bring it all together, and then talk to the other sector control bunkers, which would have been Horsham, Preston, Bristol, and Lincoln.
Okay. And so the I have a couple of photographs then this is the sort of the last period internal photograph I have, and that shows the sector operations center as it was then during an exercise, I believe.
Yes.
Do you know what date this was?
No, I've not been able to, have anyone that's been able to put a kind of precise date on it.
Looking at the
But
uniform and looking at the sort of the technology, you would probably guess it is mid 80s more than likely. I would say mid 80s to late 80s more than likely.
Mhm.
You know,
But I think it's probably around that time, and I think that the whole bunker kind of underwent a sort of program of refurbishment in the very late 80s. They
okay.
closed it for 3 months. They did things like asbestos remediation. I believe that was when the kind of the dark blue color scheme was put on the walls instead of the kind of highly attractive bile green.
Yes, well, that 31 group, obviously, in Faithful Barracks in Belfast, it underwent a similar sort of renovation program in the mid to late 80s, and they, for some reason, decided to keep that lovely green color. I think I think they actually painted more of it, because when I visited it a couple of years ago, it still looked exactly the same. So it
Oh,
did.
okay.
Now, when obviously with stand down, what happened to the bunker then in the sort of the years immediately after stand down?
Well, it was sort of transferred over to the care of the Dundee Emergency Planning Office.
Hmm.
They had a presence within Craigiebarn House, which is the kind of the mansion that's sort of kind of just out of shot of that picture to the right.
Hmm.
Uh, the house was used as the admin office for the full-time officers that worked in the bunker. The Dundee EPO had at least one room in there, and the local Raynet radio amateurs had a kind of a store and a room in there to use as well.
Okay.
So the EPO kind of got given the bunker, but I believe they didn't really know sort of what they were going to do with it.
Okay.
So it sort of sat unused. Yeah, I imagine that some of the equipment would have been stripped out, particularly the likes of the comms equipment by sort of BT.
Yes.
That have come in and taken away the message exchange switch, the telephone system, if you like, the kind of, all the technology and the kind of the very high value
Yes.
items. But all the kind of ROC specific items were just sort of left in place.
Okay.
And we were quite lucky in that the owner of Scotland's secret bunker down at Troywood, just outside Anstruther, was allowed to come in and kind of strip the building out, which meant that sort of all the kind of ephemera, like the sort of pens and pencils and little rubber stamps and treasury tags and all the things that kind of make the bunker kind of feel alive.
Yeah.
They all got taken down to the museum there, where they're kind of all on display, sort of, and safe. So that was good.
Yeah, it's quite surreal walking into Anstruther when you walk into the ROC bit, and it is essentially Dundee replicated in just outside Edinburgh, which is quite strange.
Yeah, it certainly is. What I believe kind of happened next, and I think it must have been a few years down the line into the 90s, a property developer sort of bought the entire site, and they leveled all the kind of prefabricated surface buildings. They knocked down the linking corridor you can see in the bottom right of that picture. And they turned the whole area and built houses around it, and they subdivided Craigiebarn House into sort of like a dozen flats.
Yes, and I take it their intention was to probably demolish the bunker.
Well, I would have thought that, being in the very corner of the plot, the amount of money it would have cost them to actually get rid of the bunker to the point you could put maybe one or two houses on it, it probably wasn't worth the time and effort to get rid of it. So what they did is, I mean, you can see on that picture, there's the kind of 4 kind of flat-topped pagodas. They just demolished those and knocked them straight off, and actually pushed all the rubble down the one that you can see, like the third one from the left, which is where the foul air comes out of the bunker. They pushed it all in that, put paving slabs over the top of them, and then they built a kind of brick wall and a roof over the bunker, so that from the outside it actually looks identical to the houses.
Yeah, it's quite surreal driving up to it. I remember the first time I ever visited, and you sort of drive into this housing development, and then you come to a fence, and it just looks like a little small house in behind the fence. And then when you open the door, there's a blast door behind the front door of this little house, which is quite strange.
Yeah, and I think, most people would probably assume it was a covered reservoir or something.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you look at it in Google Earth and things like that there, and even in this view here, you can see in this photograph, the mound, yeah, it does. It looks exactly like a covered reservoir.
Yep.
So when did the idea then for the building? I mean, obviously the building, once it was sort of purchased from the builder, the building developers, when did the idea then to start restoring it as a possible museum, and then when did you become involved with it?
Well, the intention sort of always was to restore it. The owner of the bunker was quite heavily involved in the restoration of the English Heritage ROC bunker down at Acombe.
Yes.
And they were kind of so busy trying to get that sort of sorted out that, the work at Dundee didn't sort of really kick off in earnest until sort of I joined the team late on in 2004. Mm-hmm. And the owner invited me for a visit, and kind of halfway around during our tour, he asked me if I'd like to manage it. I sort of, considered for a microsecond and said yes.
And I take it you've always had an interest in sort of the Cold War and bunkers in general.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I always used to take holidays with my parents on Guernsey. And it's the kind of one of the most heavily fortified places in the world, in terms of the number of bunkers, sort of, per meter almost. Yeah. So playing in those when I was kind of 5 and 6 years old just set me up for always being interested in both sort of overground and underground bunkers.
Yes. Now, obviously, my first visit to you was, I think, 2009. I had been at a friend's wedding, and I had brought over a few bits and pieces for you. We'd obviously conversed quite a bit by sort of private message and emails and things like that there. And I had brought some bits and pieces over for you, and I was going to get a few bits and pieces from you. Now, my first view of Dundee was this road sign, which I think is absolutely fantastic, that this is still in situ and that it's never been removed. I mean, have you ever sort of worried that, someday somebody from the road service will come along and remove it?
Yes, all the time. I'm worried though that if I ring the council and ask about it, that would remind them that it's there and kind of hasten its appearance.
Now, are the Air Training Corps still in the little hut just up the road?
Yes, they are.
Right. Well, that will probably mean it will stay around for a little bit longer then, which is a good thing. Now, when I first was there, I think you were at the stage where you were restoring the building, but you were doing more cleaning than actual, physical restoration. So, I mean, I think one of my first views of downstairs, I think, was sort of this photograph. Now, this is down in sector, and all that sort of, a lot of that white sort of marking on the roof is mold, but it's also where sort of the paint has been flicked off the roof. But I take, was the building damp? Had it got damp at some point, or is it just the case that it had been sort of sealed up for so long?
Well, The local fire brigade were kind of allowed to do exercises in here, and although they weren't sort of spraying water around, if you're kind of rolling out hoses that have been in use, you do still get a bit of water out of them, and the hoses are still a bit wet, maybe.
Yes.
And the particularly the kind of the lower parts of the bunker, like the whole of the kind of extra sector add-on, had obviously got to the point where it was a little wet at one stage, and the problem is that once the mold starts to get a hold, unless you drop the humidity, you will never ever stop it.
Yes.
And it's a big sort of problem, and once it has kind of spread to the level that it has, in that picture, even if you then go and put a dehumidifier in, you'll kind of make it all inactive, so it won't grow anymore, but it won't just spontaneously vanish.
Yes, no, it's quite strange seeing this photograph, because I have stayed the night in this room in a bunk bed, and it's quite strange seeing it like this, because the way I mean, I do remember seeing it like this, but I also remember seeing it completely pristine, with beautifully painted walls, a lovely fresh new carpet on the floor, and I think there's about 10 bunk beds in this room now. Is that sort of right?
I think it's 12, but yes,
12.
it's that kind of number. I mean, what we used it for then was kind of storing all of the fixtures and fittings and furniture that English Heritage very kindly donated to us.
There's a few more there.
So, I mean, although I came on board in 2004, it took us a good 5 years to really kind of get going and gain some traction.
Yeah.
Because it was me and my friend Torquil sort of on our own, and it's a big job, and we'd pop up on a sort of a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. We do a few hours work and then go back to Edinburgh again. So it was really very much a case of, well, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Yes.
But we were just nibbling around the edges at that point, and we were sort of having to clean up the mold as best we could, get rid of the carpets. Do you have a picture there that shows sector when it was completely empty?
I don't actually know. Not 100% empty. I mean, that would be the closest I would have to it being empty.
But, okay, sorry, it's a bit tricky here, because the only picture I can see on my screen is the surface picture of the bunker. It hasn't changed.
Has it not?
No.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I've been going through photographs. I don't know why it hasn't actually changed. I hope it has changed.
So we kind of got it to that stage by stripping out all the kind of the grotty old carpet. Okay. We had kind of a big work weekend where we did nothing but wash walls.
Okay.
That was the kind of that kind of set us on the road to getting that sector dormitory done, and it was it was really big. So we got it all washed down, then we sort of taped the walls off, and we got them repainted. Another few sort of evenings work to kind of touch it up and finish it off, but then that was that room ready to go. It was like our first this room is done kind of thing, and that sort of started to push us on, because we were sort of thinking, right, we've got all this furniture from English Heritage, but we can't really put it out in sector because sector isn't carpeted. And so we started sort of looking around, thinking, right, where are we going to get carpet from? How are we going to fit it? Am I going to be able to do an all right job if I sort of do it myself? And a couple of years that sort of rolled around my head, and I realised, I'm not going to be able to make a good job of that at all.
Yeah.
And we were incredibly fortunate that Stephen West emailed the owner and sort of said, "Oh, my granddad used to be the kind of handyman for the bunker back in the day."
Hmm.
Um, I was able to go and kind of, visit it when I was a child. I'd really like to see it again. Could I please have a tour? And after a bit of time, the owner passed Stephen's email on to me, and I invited him down. And when we got to the kind of the end of the tour in Sector, I was sort of bemoaning the fact that I had this great big space and a lot of stuff to put in it, but I couldn't do it because I didn't have any carpet and I didn't have anyone to put it down. I didn't know what I was going to do. And Stephen sort of pipes up saying, "Oh, I'm in the trade. I'm a carpet fitter." I think at that point I'm just about ready to kidnap him and keep him there until the carpet was put down.
Yeah, you've got reasonably lucky with stuff like that, because obviously a lot of carpet to put down. Stephen being the carpet feeder and a very, very good handyman as well. He can put his hand to a lot of things. You brought people on as well, like Mike Scott, who I'm hopefully going to interview at some point soon, who's fantastic, as well as yourself, with technology. People like David Shaw from 22 Group ROCA, excellent with technology. And you've been able to bring the bunker to life. A lot of museums like York, for instance, while an absolutely excellent museum, a lot of the things in it don't work. The thing I love about Dundee is that every single thing in the bunker works, from the generator through the air filtration system, through you pick up a telephone and you can ring any other telephone in the building, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we really, really wanted to be a kind of practical, hands-on museum. And I always sort of felt that, if you build it, they will come, would be, kind of my mantra. So that, if I, sort of did it the way that I wanted, which was very much, I want everything in this place to work, that I was able to kind of, attract people with the same kind of ideals as me.
Yes.
Kind of, practical folk, wanting to, get the job done. And, I've been fantastically lucky. I've met a lot of, great friends, incredibly talented people. And they've come down and kind of, shared the vision. And, now, we're genuinely at the point where there really is very little in the building that doesn't work as it did originally.
Which is amazing when you think about it. I mean, it still astounds me when I go that everything does do what it's supposed to do. I was talking to Mike last night, and now I know you can't see it, and I don't know why. We'll talk about that afterwards, why you can't see any of the photographs, but I know the viewers can, because they've been commenting that they can't see them, which is good. Now I'm showing a photograph now of the female dorm. Mm-hmm. And this is usually where I sleep. I used to sleep downstairs. I now sleep in the female dorm. Don't ask me why. I just like to sleep there. It's nice and peaceful. And something which I only ever noticed, it was the last time I stayed there, when the main lights, all the lights are off and the room is dark, a little red bulb comes on for a nightlight, so that people, when they were doing hot bunks originally, doing exercise, or if there ever had been an actual emergency, anybody coming into the room or leaving the room wouldn't wake anybody else up by turning the lights on. They could find their bunk or get out of their bunk. And there was just something about that red light. I remember lying there in the bed looking at it going, the fact that that still works is just, it's just, I just thought that was fantastic. And I know there's so many other things in the bunker that are just incredible. The fact they still work, like the communication system and the generator, the air filtration system. But just that little red light, the fact that that little bulb was still working and it was still doing its job after all these years, just made me feel so happy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, we just, want to get to that kind of level, really, of every single little thing, sort of up and running. We try to balance using the original kit along with the potential of modern technology.
Okay. Yeah.
So we always try and use original things where we can. Um, but things like the original bunker fire alarm system was just based on a couple of call points. It was completely inadequate. There's no way that it would pass a kind of sort of modern fire safety check. Um, so we did have to sort of say in the end, right, we're going to have to put a more modern system in alongside the original one.
Hmm.
But because you can't really have two fire alarm systems running at the same time in case people try and use a break glass on the old one and then nothing happens.
Yes.
So we had to kind of cover up all the old call points, but we still left everything there, and we've just taken the fuse out of the original fire alarm panel so that it could all be reinstated if we ever wanted to.
Yes.
But we now have a completely modern, up-to-date smoke detection system. All the right heads in the right places, so that it's totally up to standard with enough sirens that it would wake anybody up in the middle of the night anywhere in the bunker. It'll send me a text message when it goes off. So and yes, some people might say, "Oh, well, no, it's not original,"
Hmm.
but I think when you're dealing with safety systems, sometimes you just have to say
Yeah.
that safety kind of wins out over strict kind of rivet counting authenticity.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, with all these incredible highs also come lows. And I think it'd be remiss not to talk about it. In 2015, everything could have been completely destroyed after the flood.
Yeah, that was a night. I was driving up the motorway because we had the BBC Out of Doors program coming up to do an interview with us, and I'd just gone past the junction at Inchmichael, and Stephen rang and he said, "Gav, we've got a problem." I'm like, "Uh-oh." Well, how bad could it be? I said, "Well, what is it?" And it's like, there's water everywhere. We've sprung a leak. The water heater in the canteen has been leaking, and it's just gone everywhere. And so, then, I had to, fight the urge to kind of, really put my foot down and speed up the motorway. So I had kind of almost half an hour before I could sort of step through the door and kind of see it for myself.
Yeah.
And I got in and I could just walk through the front door and I could smell the wet, because as you and a lot of the fans know, bunkers have a very specific smell, and this was kind of like that times 1,000.
Yeah.
And I sort of walked downstairs, and as soon as I stepped off the bottom stair, it was just squelch, 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 squelch down the corridor. And I was just like, oh man, what on earth has happened? And I was, and at that point, the guy from the BBC kind of rang the doorbell, and I had to go up and speak to him. And I sort of, explained, we've had a bit of a problem. And he's like, "Oh, well, do you still want to do it?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, let's do it. It'll be great radio."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I ended up, doing that, that program, being interviewed as I squelched around the bunker in my wellies. And when the chap was interviewing me, that was the first time I was actually seeing the kind of devastation downstairs.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was it was quite a time. But the brilliant thing though about that night was, as soon as sort of Stephen put the word out on social media saying we've got a problem, everybody in the area just turned up to help. We had Cheryl, who I think you're going to speak to in a future video. She sort of mustered some of her team from up in Arbroath. They kind of dashed down with sort of mops and buckets. The local Raynet radio amateurs came down with pumps and lights. The chaps from the restoration down at Barnton Quarry, they came up with their kind of super heavy duty sort of wet vacuum and the biggest dehumidifier that I have ever seen, all sort of quarter ton of it. And we kind of worked like demons until sort of 1 o'clock in the morning, until we'd got all the excess water kind of sucked up, and the bunker was in it's still in a heck of a state. The carpets were absolutely wet, and the sort of things were still kind of half floating about in the cable ducts, but the situation was kind of vaguely stable. So I set up a camp bed in the top corridor because it was the only place that wasn't absolutely horrendously humid and awful. And sort of spent the night, and I had to ring my boss in the morning and say, look, I'm really sorry, I need to take an emergency day off. And fortunately, he was very understanding. And I just had to, then spend, the sort of the next day just, constantly vacuuming the carpets. And, each kind of evening and weekend we came up after that, we just had to keep on and on and on. Sort of vacuuming it as the water kind of came out of places that I had no idea water could even get to.
Yeah.
And we ended up sort of having to redo a lot of the carpet that we'd done. Not all of it, a lot of it managed to survive once it was kind of glued back down again. But areas like the radio room were an absolute write-off. We ended up having to empty the room completely. All the lino tiles that were under the carpet tiles had just turned into this absolutely vile mush.
Right.
So we had to. I think it took an entire day with these great big scrapers to kind of bash the remains off the floor, and half of it ended up the walls. So we just had to wash the wall, and it was on the ceiling. And it was horrific.
Yeah, but the community. I think the community response around it, and sort of the one would be the people who follow the restoration on Facebook. Also the sort of the bunker community, that rallied round. I think you even had a donation from one of the original creators of Grand Theft Auto.
We did, yes. We were incredibly fortunate that a lot of people sort of put their hands in their pockets and helped us out, and I'm going to be eternally grateful for that. So many people were willing to give their time to come down and help us out, afterwards with the repainting. Subterranea Britannica were incredibly generous, and, gave us, enough money to completely replace the sort of the carpets on the middle level, and the remaining carpets on the ground level that didn't manage to survive.
Yeah.
And that was great, because we would have really struggled to do it in a timely fashion on our own.
Yeah, well, I think that leads me now to how Sector looks today. And obviously, I think it is a piece de resistance of the entire building, which I will throw up now. And I think this image, for sort of people who haven't been there before, really should show the dedication that has gone into the restoration of this building. To get the display boards, the large Perspex display boards, which are in the background of the image, simply, getting the Perspex for those. There is original sections of Perspex from an original ROC group headquarters, and then the rest of the Perspex is brand new with new maps drawn on. Isn't that correct?
Yes. What we had to go and do for that is we had to pop down to Scotland's secret bunker, where the original boards are displayed, and the owner very kindly let us beyond the rope to be able to go and get very detailed photographs of the original maps, which I then kind of traced in Adobe Illustrator, printed them out at full size, and I then sort of stuck them to the back of the blank perspex, and James, who is our incredibly talented sort of bunker artist, spent it was years of dedication that it took to laboriously trace every grid line, every bit of coastline, all of the sort of the numbers and letters that have been originally put on in Letraset. James drew them all by hand.
Incredible.
I mean, you can see it behind me here. It was an absolute labor of love, but it just finishes the whole room off. Just sort of absolutely tremendously. We always show this room last on the tour, and people always seem to be really impressed when they walk in to kind of wrap the tour up, because it kind of knits together everything that we've been telling them for the kind of previous 90 minutes. And they walk in here, and there's always intakes of breath and all that kind of thing, which that I find that incredibly gratifying.
Oh, definitely. It makes all those long nights and sweaty days and cuts on the hand from screws and things like that there, it makes it all worth it, because the dedication that goes in to restoring sites such as this is incredible. And I've been very lucky to have played a very, very small part in it. I've been over a few times helping in small ways, and it's so gratifying to see the building as it looks now. I excuse me, I love to see the updates on Facebook, because it looks, looking at the period photographs and looking how it looks now, you've matched photographs, you've matched posters, you've matched little sort of stickers on various parts of walls that you've zoomed in to see what it says, and then you've replicated them. It's superb. It's absolutely superb. It's one of my favorite museums in a living museum way, because it's the fact that you can touch things aren't behind glass, they're not in cases, you can physically go and look. There's the telephone exchange, you can go and work the telephone exchange. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it, and my hat is off to you and the rest of the team. You've done an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. I mean, the reason that we do it, and I imagine it's quite similar, to the reason that you do your equally faithful restoration of the post at Portadown, is just wanting to make sure that the Royal Observer Corps have their story told.
Yeah.
Because they in movies like the Battle of Britain, you kind of see them in there, although they are named, but these days, if you explain to somebody, or just say the name, the Royal Observer Corps, you usually have to follow it up with, it was the folk in sandbag dugouts, looking up at the sky and plotting aircraft. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. But really, most people aren't aware of the Cold War role that the Corps played, and while we've still got observers with us, I think it's just of the most paramount importance to get their stories and tell them.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's why it's good that there is. I mean, the fact that you're the only original sector bunker which is restored. Yes, York is good, but it is a normal headquarters. You have a headquarters and a sector as well joined onto it, and I think it would be a travesty if there wasn't a sector bunker restored. And the fact that you've done it in such a professional way just adds more to the gravitas of the whole building, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and really as well, the amount of money that has actually been spent on this, as well as all the kind of generous donations from people. I've funded it myself. Mike's put money into the work, but I won't. The amount that it has cost, but it is staggeringly low for the result that we've achieved. I mean, it would buy you, a decent, mid-range estate car. And it's also, we've spent that in the last 16 years. So, I think, and thanks to, everybody's absolute dedication, from ex-observers and people like yourself coming across and helping, with all the kind of horrible jobs that nobody wants to do, like painting. Me especially, as Mike and Steve will attest, you can always tell that if there's a brush in my hand, something has gone terribly, terribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it is excellent, and obviously with this whole terrible year that we are currently having, you would have been open, similar to myself, similar to Ed last week. You would be open. You would be inviting visitors in. You would be bringing in money to further restoration. Where do you see the bunker this time next year? I mean, do you envisage being able to open at some point in the near future?
Well, we've decided that we're going to have a very low-key work weekend in October if the rules and the situation, make it appropriate. So it's kind of booked in, but everyone's on the understanding that if the situation deteriorates and there's a second wave, then obviously it's all off. Yeah. We're going to keep the numbers down. We won't kind of have our usual traditional kind of free-for-all curry around the canteen table on the Saturday night. We're probably going to have to sit a bit kind of spread out around the group balcony so that we can be socially distanced. But I think that we'll see how that goes. We were sort of interested by Frank Alexander's take on it for Skelmally, where a certain number of people from the same family can visit, as long as hands are sanitized, masks are worn. And I wonder if we could do a similar kind of thing, so that on weekday evenings we could maybe do very small tours. I mean, it wouldn't be the kind of 150 or 200 people in a weekend, but kind of every every little helps in it if we can start to kind of chip away at the backlog that we built up, because the sort of the tour weekend that we had to postpone in March, and we put it back to August, hoping it would be okay by August. But in July, I think we just had to say no, it's not safe.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be an item on the news where it says a sort of 100 people have been infected thanks to 3 idiots opening a bunker in Dundee. So we always want to be safe.
Yes, exactly. Now, we incredibly have been talking for 43 minutes, and obviously I wanted to do this to help more people learn about Dundee. Where can people find you on the World Wide Web and on social media?
You can find us at www.28group.org.uk. That's the sort of like the digits 28. We're on Twitter at 28group. We're on facebook.com/28group. We do have Instagram, although we very rarely post there. The Facebook group is probably the best place to kind of keep up with us on a regular basis. Updates are sort of a little scant at the moment because we're only just starting to kind of come back for our kind of every other weekly evening visits.
Yeah.
Up there, but hopefully the kind of the pace of things will be accelerating a bit. Mike's been off, building some bunker bits in his man cave at home. I've been doing bunker electronics work in my garage. We've had some really good work actually. We've linked up with the bunker at Kelvedon Hatch, and a good friend of mine down in England who used to work for BT on the private wires used for teleprinters. And we've done things like getting a teleprinter modem in my house, talking to a modem in her house, actually via the internet rather than a private phone line. So we've been trying to kind of move things on
Yeah.
as best we can without having to be in the bunker.
Yeah.
But so
it's the technological advances that has come out of Dundee have really helped the entire community, because if it wasn't for Mike, we wouldn't have the teletalk over the internet. We wouldn't be able to talk to each other. If David Shaw hadn't come on board, he wouldn't have been able to put in the new microphones in the teletalks and fix any problems with them. So I think that the community as a whole, as I know it, I mean, I haven't been involved in it for as long as you have. I'm 10 years into it now, I'm 11 years into it, and the whole community has grown around Dundee. And I think that's why so many people have so much affection for it, because without Dundee, there wouldn't be new friendships, there wouldn't be renewed friendships. And I think it's just the camaraderie. And for that, I thank you for that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that, another of the things that I'm very grateful for is, how accepted, we've become actually in the Royal Observer Corps sort of family. We're members of the 28 group Royal Observer Corps Association. I'm a member of the 22 group rocker as well. We always get invited along to reunions, although
you got the award last year.
Sorry, I talked over you there.
Oh, Paul, no, you got the award last year as well, the Heritage Award.
Yes, we did, which was that was really very pleasing to get that. I've literally only just had it engraved as well, so it's actually now ready to return to them.
Yes, it's always the way. Yes, it is always the way. But listen, Matt, thank you very, very much for coming on. I always have an interesting chat with you, and it's Dundee will always have a special place for me, because it's a little tiny bit of me has gone into doing something in it, and just to see how it looks now is it's a credit to you. As I say, I know I've already said it, but it is a credit to you and everybody else that's involved with it, and long may it continue, and hopefully sometime in the near future it can be open properly and we can get visitors back in to see it again.
Absolutely. Well, you must come over, because it's changed quite a bit, I think, since the last time you were here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's easily the guts of 3 years, I think, since the last time I was there. Easily.
Yep. And it's I'm just I obviously it's all about the team. We would be lost without everybody that sort of comes down to help us. Everything's it's always a team effort. But so I'm really, really kind of glad that I've found enough people to
yes, geeky enough as you, and us, to do it. Yes, I'm in the same boat. Yeah, it is. Well, listen, thank you very, very much. I will let you get away, and you're probably looking to get home now. You probably got to work tomorrow, so I will let you get away. But listen, Matt, thank you very, very much, and I will definitely be speaking to you soon.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Al.
All right, Matt. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone, that was Gavin Saxby from 28 Group Observed in Dundee, and I hope you found that interesting. I always love speaking to Gavin, and he's a really, really nice guy and a really good friend. Next time, I will hopefully have on David Shaw of 22 Group Carlisle, Royal Observer Corps Association. David used to serve on one of the monitoring posts during the Cold War, and we will hopefully be speaking to him about his time in the Corps, his experiences serving in the underground posts, and just to get some of his feelings about how he felt if the balloon ever had gone up and there was a nuclear war. What does he think it would have been like in a monitoring post? But listen, folks, as always, thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye bye.